Long before Westeros even knew their name, the Targaryens were just one of many dragon-riding families in Valyria. When an apocalyptic event wiped out the rest of the continent, the Targaryens survived almost by accident, leaving them as the last dragonlords in existence. Aegon I used this heir superiority to conquer 6 of the 7 kingdoms and forge the Iron Throne, subjugating an entire continent with weapons no one else could access. This created a permanent dilemma. Once a family seizes total power through a superweapon, they must find a way to ensure that power never leaves their hands. For the Targaryens, the conquest was only the beginning. The real challenge was engineering a mechanism to hoard their monopoly on dragons forever. To maintain control, the Targaryens turned their family tree inward. They married brother to sister and cousin to cousin, deliberately constructing a restricted biological system to lock down their bloodline. This wasn't just a cultural tradition, it was a strategy to ensure the ability to bond with dragons remained exclusively within their specific genetic line. During the reign of Jaehaerys I, this strategy appeared successful. Decades of peace and stability created a sense that the dynasty was truly invincible. But concentrating biological and political authority into a closed circle creates a pressure cooker. Instead of merely preserving strength, this isolation amplifies the underlying volatility of the family. By engineering a closed system to protect their power, the Targaryens hard-coded their own eventual collapse into their DNA. That pressure reached a breaking point during the Dance of the Dragons, a civil war that split the single family line into 2 warring branches. This explains why this conflict was devastating. Because of the family's inward-facing architecture, both Rhaenyra and Aegon II possessed identical claims, the same blood and the same dragons. In a family this tightly interwoven, disputes cannot remain purely political. They become violently personal. The dynasty wiped out its own greatest asset. By the end of the war, nearly all the dragons were dead, and the family's monopoly on force was broken. While their closed system was built to repel outside enemies, its tightly wound nature guaranteed it would eventually tear itself apart from the inside. Without dragons to enforce their will, the fragility of the Targaryen bloodline was exposed to the rest of the world. This graph maps the generations that followed, illustrating the coin flip of Targaryen heritage. Each new birth carried a risk of extreme psychological unpredictability. This volatility culminated in Aerys II. He began as a promising ruler, but descended into paranoia and cruelty. His obsession with burning his own people triggered Robert's Rebellion, a continent-wide uprising that finally broke the Targaryen hold on the Iron Throne. The rebellion ended Targaryen rule in Westeros, pruning the family tree down to a few exiled survivors. With no dragons left to shield them, the family had no protection against the systemic rot that had been building for generations. For a time, the dynasty appeared finished. Daenerys Targaryen lived in exile, isolated from the power her ancestors once held. When she hatches 3 dragons, she brings the ancient superweapon back into the world, along with the capacity for destruction that built the Iron Throne. The birth of these dragons meant that the core ingredients of the Targaryen legacy, fire, ambition, and absolute power, were suddenly back in play. This wasn't just a return of a family name. It was the return of the volatile mechanism that had nearly destroyed the world before. The true burden of the Targaryen family tree isn't just the crown, it's the psychological weight of the bloodline itself. Daenerys carries the same duality as her predecessors, the capacity for greatness and the potential for catastrophic ruin. Understanding this lineage reveals why Targaryen history feels like an inescapable loop of rising and falling. The Targaryens fell because absolute power, when hoarded in a closed biological circle, will always eventually burn itself to the ground.